The NFL Today is sponsored by Cotton Incorporated, the fiber company of American cotton producers. Light beer, everything you always wanted in a beer, and less. And by Ford and your Ford dealer, who invite you to see their better ideas for '78, including Fairmont, the Ford in your future. Now from the CBS Control in New York, here is Brent Musburger.
Welcome back, everyone. It's the Rams and the Vikings coming up momentarily on CBS. But first, let's go back and set the scene. The first game in the playoffs, Saturday afternoon in Baltimore. It was the Oakland Raiders and the Baltimore Colts. It was the second sudden death overtime. It was Ken Stabler shocking Baltimore with a pass called by John Madden, hitting Dave Casper, and the Raiders advance.
Brent, then in Denver, the Broncos led 27-21 after Tom Jackson's second interception late in the fourth quarter. It's now 2nd and 11 at the Steeler 34, and they expect Craig Morton to try to run out the clock, but instead he throws deep in the left corner of the end zone to Jack Dolbin, and a 34-21 Denver victory.
And just this afternoon in Dallas, right here on CBS, it was early in the third quarter, and Dallas led 17-zip. The Bears still had hopes, but TD Tony Dorsett dashed those hopes with his 22-yard run-off tackle for a touchdown, which gave him 2 TDs, 17 carries, 85 yards, leading the Cowboys to a 37-7 triumph over the Chicago Bears.
And, Phyllis, what that means is that next Sunday at 2 p.m. it will be Oakland and Denver for the AFC Championship game. And at halftime of Los Angeles, Minnesota, we'll bring in our wizard, Jimmy the Greek, to analyze that game for us.
Well, Brent, you're going to have to wait until halftime because I sent my two sons, Anthony and Jamie, to Mount Olympus to talk to a friend of mine about Denver.
And how long will that take, James?
Right. All of the good fans out in Bloomington are going to love this statistic, but one of our fans from Miami called and said, do you realize that every team that has scored first so far in the playoffs has gone on to win? And if you go back and check, sure enough, they're right. On Saturday, it was Oakland and the Denver Broncos who got the first 7 points, and even though those two games seesawed back and forth, they came through the winner, Dallas, easily earlier today. Let's bring in Jimmy the Greek now and check up on next Sunday's AFC Championship game. Jimmy, how do you analyze a very rough contest?
There's no question about it. I'm sure that everybody out there knows that this is a toss-up practically. But, I mean, the speed really in this game is about even. The whole thing about Stabler over Morton, but Morton definitely had to impress you with the tenacity that he showed in the Pittsburgh game. You know, when you put good people around somebody, of course, I guess it's pretty good. The defensive secondary has to go to Denver because Oakland is hurting, plus the fact they've got Wright and Thompson there, and they're super ball players, plus the fact they made the Super Bowl, rather the super game after the Super Bowl. The linebackers, Granishar and Tom Jackson are real great. The offensive line, I mean, I've got to give it to Oakland because of Upshaw and Sale, but really it definitely will be negated in some way because of the defensive of Denver. Davis and Egan, Davis and Egan definitely are a good running team, you know, but they're just an edge of Armstrong and company. The kicking game, the guy by just the nose because Turner is so good, you know, on the other, on field goals. And don't forget that they're at home, you know, but Denver has never beaten, you know, Oakland at home since Al Davis has been around, you know, so consequently, because we have to make somebody favorite and somebody has to win, we're going to make Oakland just a very slight favorite, like a field goal.
All right, Jimmy, you've got Oakland rated a field goal better than Denver, and again, that will be the first championship game next Sunday, and that is going to start at 2 o'clock, and we might as well tell you that NBC will carry that. We'll have the second game. We'll start at 5 o'clock here on CBS. Now, we're going to be back. We're going to interview the commissioner of the NFL, who will be standing by live out in Los Angeles. We'll see highlights, and then Phyllis George will take us back down inside that victorious Dallas locker room for an interview with running back Robert Newhouse. All that coming up on CBS is... NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle is a native of Southern California, but I will not kid him about the weather that he is experiencing in the Coliseum. But I do want to ask a couple of serious questions. And the first one, Commissioner, is about violence. You cracked down as the season began. You fined a couple of players. Are you satisfied now that you have reduced the amount of violence in the National Football League?
Well, I'm satisfied that it's been reduced, Brent. I think that over the regular season we were down about 20% on personal fouls as against a year ago. Obviously, you're never satisfied until it's eliminated. But with a very physical contact, highly emotional sport that football is, it's a difficult job.
Commissioner, you have recently negotiated the largest contract in the history of television for anything, sports, movies, or situation comedies. You've got some more games in prime time. Are you at all concerned that you may be overexposing the National Football League on television?
Well, we've moved up gradually. As you know, Brent, we've reduced our preseason down from 6 to 4 games, and we'll eliminate 3 national telecasts there. I think that the crowds this year and the television audiences indicate we haven't reached a point of overexposure, and I don't think we will next year either.
Mister, every year we have a few officiating controversies. This year was no different. And the point I want to make, is it possible for the National Football League to go to isolated replay to help the officials maybe change a possession calls or important calls in playoff games? Is the league thinking about that?
We've talked about it in recent years, and me again, Brent, there are some problems. To do it properly, you would need about 12 camera locations with trained cameramen and a videotape truck so that you could replay the key ones for the appropriate individual. And you're talking about quite an installation. However, anything we can do to improve the situation on officiating, we'd like to do. But so far in our studies have indicated that it would not be feasible.
All right, Commissioner, thank you very much. Enjoy the second half, and we will see you on CBS at the Super Bowl, New Orleans, on January 15th. Irv Cross, there was an earlier game on CBS. Was not much of a contest, and you've got some highlights.
Well, it wasn't much of a contest as far as the Bears are concerned, but of course Dallas Cowboy fans had to be happy with a 37-7 victory over the Chicago Bears. And Robert Newhouse was the guy who really set the pace early for Dallas. Here he is now, number 44, on a 13-yard run down to the 6-yard line, which set up a touchdown by Doug Dennison later in the game. And you'll see that right here as Dennison goes off left tackle in the first quarter. Dallas takes an early 7-0 lead. Roger Staubach goes to the air early here, going to Drew Pearson, who brings in a 32-yard pass. Staubach, by the way, had a pretty good throwing day in the first half. Didn't do much. The second half hit 8 for 13 for 134 yards and a touchdown. Staubach going to the air again to Billy Joe Dupree. Here's a touchdown catch right here, a 28-yard touchdown. Dallas takes a 14-0 lead. Robert Newhouse ran the ball well, also does a good job on a screen pass here, up to the upper right-hand corner of your screen as he comes down to the right sideline, down to the Chicago 8-yard line, set up a field goal by Efren Herrera, and Tony Dorsett, a nifty 22-yard touchdown run, and Dallas takes a commanding 24-0 lead. The Bears, trying to get something started, found themselves really in trouble here on a blitz by Dallas as the ball pops loose here from Avellini's hands, and the linebacker recovers it here for the Dallas Cowboys, and they eventually go in to set up another score. Avellini, trying to get the ball off again, is in trouble. The ball's hit, or ladder here is hit, and he fumbles the ball, and Dede Lewis recovers it and takes it down to the 8-yard line, and the Dallas Cowboy defense is alert all day long, and Tony Dorsett does the rest from the 8-yard line. He goes in, and Dallas takes a 34-0 lead, and at this point the game is really over, Brent, but the Chicago Bears, as energetic as they are trying like crazy to get back in the ball game. Avellini throws the ball. It's overthrown. Charlie Waters picks it off. His third interception of the game, by the way, which ties an NFL record in the postseason play. Avellini trying to get back. The Bears haven't given up here yet, trailing 37-0. He goes up on top, hits Steve Schubert, and the game ends that way. Dallas 37, Chicago 7.
And so, Phyllis, the Dallas Cowboys now go into the NFC Championship game.
They did play very well, if I might say so myself. And while nearly everyone was expecting a classic match in running styles between Dallas's Tony Dorsett and Chicago's Walter Payton, as Irv pointed out, Robert Newhouse was quietly piling up the yardage, 16 carries for 80 yards, plus key first downs for the Cowboys. Paul Hornung spoke with him after the game.
Bears 7, the Cowboys completely outclassing the young Chicago Bears. And one of the big guns for Dallas, 16 carries, 80 yards, was Robert Newhouse. And boy, in the first half, I never saw a better display offensively and defensively for the Cowboys.
Well, you know, going into the game, we knew we had to move the ball on the ground. And, you know, with a lot of talk about Dorsett out there, you know, I knew they were going to just sort of leave the mill open, so I just tried to take advantage of it.
You sure did. Cutback made a few real nice cutting back against the grain, Bob, and you're built so low to the ground, you can do that pretty easily.
Well, yeah, they showed us, you know, it was a quick hitting play, and they looped out and shut that hole off, so, you know, I had to go somewhere, and I didn't want to go down right then, so it worked out all right.
I also noticed Tony Dorsett scored a couple of the touchdowns right behind you.
Well, you know, I have a lot of key blocks out there, and, you know, sometimes I don't make my block, you know, the play doesn't go anywhere, so I had to get to safety, and he came up there, and all Tony had to do was jump off my back, so I was there to get him.
How about the offensive line? You got to say something about them. They were just simply fantastic.
Well, I think this is one of the better games our offensive line had all year. And this time of the season, you know, your line got to be ready and your back's got to be ready to hit off those blocks. So we had it keyed up today, and I think we're ready.
Now,
So, no matter who wins the Minnesota-Los Angeles game, the championship game for the NFC next Sunday will be played in Dallas. And again, our coverage will begin at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, in the first half of the Minnesota-Los Angeles game, the Vikings have come on strong. And remember that they have beaten the Rams 3 consecutive times in playoff competition. Here now is Lee, who has replaced the injured Fran Tarkenton, going to Rashad, who has had a sensational year for the Vikings, down to the Ram 31-yard line. Now here is Lee going to Miller, and this is great hustle here by White on the fumble. He gets over and recovers for Minnesota, and that kept the scoring drive alive. Chuck Foreman, the all-purpose back, number 44, barging in. It was 7-0. Los Angeles ball now. Pat Hayden trying to rally the Rams, who goes to Terry Nelson over the middle. And the tight end gets down to the 20-yard line. Nelson, with a good year, kept Charlie Young on the bench. Now they want to go on the screen play.